First, I'm going to say that 49% increase in tax revenue does not automatically mean that Nigerian economy is now more productive. What it simply means is that, okay, we've made more revenue from taxes. Now, talking about the productivity of the economy, a number of other factors has to be considered. For example, we have to look at government spending, we have to look at what is the GDP ratio, we have to look at what is the household income. Because ordinarily we can increase the tax base, make more taxes, if there are still leakages here and there within the economic system. It simply means that we are making more money, but it's still leaking. So effectively, productivity of the economy is zero.
We can see the visible project that's been done, even though we've not been seeing transparency, accountability, and so many things to it. And the government equally need to do more on awareness, because awareness will make people to understand what it is and what challenges they are implementing. Look at, for example, the e-invoicing aspect of it that speak to big organization. It's a lot of organizations are not complying because they don't know how, and how can they implement it. So the government needs to do more in terms of awareness and full implementation of it. That's all from my side.
Okay, so I think it's been a good one, if I must say. Again, we're Nigerians, we're always very pessimistic about stuff, right? But if you look at it from a personal or household perspective, the way the new tax law has been done, if you're earning less, you either are not paying tax, which is a relief for you, or you're paying minimally, commensurate to what you earn. But if you're earning more, of course, you would pay more. And for businesses, one plus would be regularizing books. Most businesses don't have their books put together, but because now you are mandated by law to pay tax, you need to get your books right, and you need to file on time as well. It also helps with there are quite a number of perks as well that help. So for individuals, I think there's something around getting rent relief, something around 500,000, depending on what your rent is. You get relief, so that also helps to reduce your cost of rent or cost of housing as well. So quite a number of people will get some relief, some would not, depending on what you're earning. Some organizations may be exempted from tax, depending on where they are playing at. Some would pay less. VAT as well is also impacted, impacted. So basic food items, you don't pay VAT on it. Pharma medications, you don't pay tax on that. So at the end of the day, it balances out, really. It balances out. But again, as Nigerians, when we hear these things, oh, the government is taxing us. Yes, government will make more money. The states will get more allocation. I think before now it used to be about 55%. Yeah, it used to be 50%, but now they get 5%, so an extra 5%. Yes, so that's more money for the states and local governments to be able to do things that will benefit.
At the beginning of the year, people were having a lot of conversations around the new tax law due to the fact that there was some knowledge gap. But I think now, looking at it critically, half of the year, I think it has been able to address some issues. For instance, where I work, because I'm a banker, we realized that with people submitting their rent receipts, a lot of people even got more cash back, right, on their salary. They were even earning more at the junior grade level, right? And those of us that were, maybe like middle management and everything, were able to also get some relief and everything. So I think the tax law was just, brought into place to be able to attack all those little loopholes and everything that were already people were already taking advantage of and everything. But it wasn't as outrageous as we thought it was. Typically everybody felt, oh, once you just send money like this, FIRS, you just come and deduct your tax. Oh, tag it this, tag it that. But that wasn't really the plan. The plan was just to make sure that everybody had, like, succinct knowledge about what, the tax laws of Nigeria should be. And I think so far they've been addressing it. And there's no cry out to say, oh, maybe the bank just came and took your bank statement and took you to court and just illegally debited you the way they were claiming it was going to be.
Well, awesome. I think the tax law is now 6 months down the line, or a little more than that, right? 7 months down the line, exactly. Well, the impact has been huge for me as a father, as a brother, as a as a stakeholder for black tax, as the case may be, right? So the government is part of my black tax net. But yes, from the perspective of from government perspective, it's been a good one. I would say it has been successful. I like the way corporates, companies, and salary earners have really embraced the whole idea. I believe it has brought more funds into the government, so that they could carry out more infrastructural reforms and projects, as the case may be. On the personal side, though, right, it's slightly reduced, because the tax law was not too different in terms of impact, from what was there before. It's just that it's now more structured, and then gave leeway, to certain sectors, for instance, the education sector, right, where they allowed people that pay school fees to pay tax-free and things like that. So it sort of put a human face, to the whole tax scenario, right? I think, all in all, I think the government needs to do more in terms of advertising and making people more aware. So aside the initial buzz, right, I think it should be a continuous thing, not just by government, but also other stakeholders, especially employers, as the case may be, so that people get aware that they're actually consciously contributing, to the development of the country.
Good morning and welcome to the program. I am Gabriel, Jude from Lagos, Nigeria. Nigeria's tax landscape has entered a new phase since the implementation of 2026 Tax Reform Act. The government revenue has risen sharply, with total tax collection increasing by 49% to 16.8 trillion naira within the first 5 months of the year. But beyond the numbers lies more important question: what do these reforms mean for the households, business, and the wider economy? And today we'll look at whether higher tax revenue are translating into economic opportunity, improved public service, and a more competitive business environment, or simply placing additional pressure on taxpayers. And I have Mr. Jamiu Fatoyinbo, a tax expert, principal consultant, DFAT Professional Service. Mr. Jamiu, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, Mr. Jude, for bringing me once again.
Oh, it's all right. Nigeria's Revenue Service reports that the total revenue, for beginning the implementation of tax law, we have an increment of 49%. You could hear from my introduction, then that is 10.6 trillion naira, from 10.6 trillion naira to 16.8 trillion naira. So that is between first 5 months of 2025 and 2026. There are about of following that implementation. Then from an economic standpoint, what do you make of this?
First, I'm going to say that 49% increase in tax revenue does not automatically mean that the Nigerian economy is now more productive. What it simply means is that, okay, we've made more revenue from taxes. Now, talking about the productivity of the economy, a number of other factors has to be considered. For example, we have to look at government spending. We have to look at what is the GDP ratio. We have to look at what is the household income. Because ordinarily, we can increase the tax base, make more taxes, if there are still leakages here and there within the economic system. It simply means that we are making more money, but it's still leaking. So effectively, productivity of the economy is zero, right? And the goal of the tax law, the tax reform, is to enhance more tax administration, also improve tax compliance. So with the 49%, I'm going to say that what we just experienced is tax compliance. More people are now, brought into the tax nets. We are now getting more income from taxes. But productivity of the economy is going to be looked at separately from, or let me say, considering other factors, not just the tax income.
So when you look at these figures, it then means that we have over 6.8 trillion naira addition. Mm-hmm. So I would like to ask, is it that we've not there has not been compliance with tax, because that amount is a huge gap when you look at the 6 months period.
Yeah, it simply tells us that for other years, because we are just comparing 2025 with 2026. If we looked at 2023 with 2025, we are likely going to see a slight increase in the number. 2024 to 2025, we will experience slight increase. So what this simply means now is that earlier on, there have not been serious compliance when it comes to taxes in Nigeria. So now that, more people are now in the tax net, we are now connecting paying taxes with your business NIN and all of that. So I think that is what we see.
So one of the objectives of tax reforms that we had, it then to simplify tax administration by consolidating tax laws, including, reducing compliance cost. Yeah. We have addressing long-standing issue of multiple taxation, which is very paramount. I know that matter has been flogged, but a couple of times people talked about it and issues were raised. Then for businesses, particularly MSMEs, the issues around it, are these reforms making it easier for ease of doing business? Are they finding it easy?
I think this reform is taking us in a right direction. We are not there yet, but is a path to where we are going. Because now if we looked at it, like you said earlier, the goal of this tax reform is to reduce tax administration, reduce compliance costs, and at the same time reduce leakages within the system, and also primarily to ensure that government makes revenue. So technically, I'm going to say this reform have been putting us in the right path, the right direction to where we are going. But are we there yet? No. Are we going to get there? Obviously, one day we'll definitely get there.
So does it seems like there is a struggling between the households? And the small MSMEs?
People are still struggling, obviously. The businesses are still struggling, household, SMEs are still struggling, because when we say taxes, a lot of things comes under that. Because the government is not just coming to tax the total amount that you have made. Are coming to tax your profits as a business. And as an employee, household basically, they are coming to, tax your chargeable income, which is not all your total salary, obviously. So if they are taxing the chargeable income and you don't have proper records in place, so it then means that you still be struggling to comply with those taxes, because we have to tax you based on the number that you have presented. If you are not presenting accurate number, then there's definitely going to be a problem, which is the reason why businesses and households are still struggling. So I'm going to say for that, I think businesses need to put proper record in place. They need to ensure that their record is tidy up. They need an expert to advise them on their tax positions.
So now let's look at regional economic performance. So the latest first quarter data reveals significant disparity across Nigeria. So for example, we have Lagos State generated approximately 421.9 billion naira in tax revenue. Ikebe recorded 2.8 billion naira, Adamawa 2.7 billion naira, Yobe 2.7 billion naira, Nasarawa 2.5 billion naira, and Imo 1.5 billion naira respectively. And so when we look at VAT, value-added tax collections, Lagos, it then shows that it has 193.5 billion naira compared with Taraba at 23.5 billion naira, Ebonyi State 23.7 billion naira, Yobe 24.2 billion naira. What does this figure entail? What does it mean? And about the structure of the economy, number one, and are these primarily a reflection of the difference in economic activities between the states that we have in Nigeria? When we look at that figure, you could tell that Lagos is more higher, than other states.
Yeah, for me, when I look at report like this, I'm usually not surprised, And I think the primary reason for that is because Lagos has always been the face of the country economically. And it has always been the pace setter. If you look at it in the area of, how Lagos, generates taxes, I can say that only few states move close to, how they make taxes. Now, I think if we are going to be ranking different state tax authorities, I think Lagos is going to be number one when it comes to, the how easy it is to make it for people to comply, to pay taxes and all of that. So for me, I'm not surprised with the numbers and, having about over 300 billion gap between number one and number two. That one is not even a competition. Mm-hmm. It's just somebody leading and every other following. Do you get the point? And secondly is that it also gives you the structural imbalance of the economy between the states. So this simply means that Lagos tends to, invest more in the economy than every other state. So for all other states to, at least close the gap of this structural imbalance, they need to, invest more in the states, infrastructures, make investments easy to be done in other states.
Is this some kind of consumption patterns problem or
industrialization?
industrialization
It also shows
challenge around investment, formalization and tax administration acts?
Yeah, it shows challenges that other states are facing around investments. That's one. And secondly is that it also shows the consumption pattern because, there is virtually nothing you cannot do in Lagos to make money. So if I can actually do everything to make money in Lagos, and if I'm able to put all the energy and it survives, government will make their money. I'm also going to. There are some states that you can't take beer in some places. There are some goods that you cannot consume in some states. And, most of these goods attract VAT. So if you are telling me that as a state, I can't consume certain amount of products that attract VAT in your state, that also means that you can't make money from that income in your state. So if Lagos allow that means they can generate income from that. So it's just structural imbalance, which has, for me, I think it has always been like that since before we even got independence. Lagos has always been the capital of Nigeria before it was moved to Abuja. So I think that focus of industrialization is still existing in Lagos, even though the capital is no longer in Lagos.
Okay. So should it be that we should the future reforms that we'll have should focus on less on collecting more tax and more on helping state grow their productive economy? What do you say to that?
I personally think that future reforms should focus more on helping states grow their economy. I think it should, because if you look at it, one of the things that the president has always been saying is, I'm releasing for the state government, so go and meet your governor. So if they are saying go and meet your governor, then we should give them chances, enable investment that will grow each state.
So every tax reform ultimately affects households. Is either directly or indirectly. As government revenue increases, citizens naturally expect, know that we talked about that improvement in public services. Yet Nigerians continue to have some issues with, apparently rising cost of living. Currently we have fuel at a peak rate, and we have a lot of things going on. Also insecurity. In fact, Lagos is struggling with flooding and a lot of issues. What do you say to this? Is this something that we should focus more using this money? And now we have difference of 6.8 trillion naira. So what do you think we should do with that?
Yeah, I think when it comes to taxes, tax payment, or let me say generally, tax administration is a social contract. It's public trust that comes with social contract. So which means that if governments are making income from taxes, those tax income are expected, right, to be used for infrastructure, security, education, investment into the country. So if that trust element is missing from the part of those that are actually collecting the taxes, it becomes easier to implement the taxes. What then happens now is that people will not see it as a willing, because if you are expecting me to pay tax, it's supposed to be willingly. And I will always do something willingly if the trust is met at the other end. So if the trust from the other end is missing, that means there's no public trust. I will not be willingly want to, comply with whatever reform you are bringing. Then what happens now is that government will have to, use force to collect the taxes. And when you are using force to collect taxes, it then means that you will be having higher, implementation costs, because you are always going to be, sourcing for things, a way of getting these taxes by force, by fire, which was caused as a result of, lack of, let me say, the absence of public trust. So it's a social contract, and trust must always be met from the part of the government.
Mr. Jamiu, they say knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to the fundamentals, right? The issue of advocacy, before this tax implementation, January 2026 started, there was, advocacy, knowledge sharing, and, awareness and, providing insight for the Nigerian households, public, to understand what this really means. Do you think that the awareness, the advocacy has been enough? Do you think that people really understand this? Because when you look at it now, nobody is talking about tax reforms. Nobody is talking about what is the tax law saying. People are just there, and I can tell you what, we engage people on the street, and then they will tell you, what does that mean? And then we are out to collect tax, and then we everyone is looking at, government is looking at the households is looking at the government. Do well, we need roads and this, and the government are saying pay your tax, do this, do that.
So on the issue of advocacy and education, I think that what government, or let me say what the tax reform committee, because I haven't heard from them in a while, what the tax, when it comes to sharing the knowledge, has not been enough. As a matter of fact, I don't know their performance metrics, what they have set for themselves, to say, okay, if we're able to achieve this, that means we have done enough. We don't know their performance metrics, but I believe there will definitely be some sort of performance metrics for themselves, right? Are they done enough? I don't think so, because as I've said, there's some people that they don't know that they have to pay taxes. They don't know. There are businesses that until when you start talking to them, you just ask them, okay, so have you filed your taxes? Then you start seeing this strange face, like, what am I supposed to file? Some people will say, I filed taxes. What did you file? You realize that the only thing they filed was annual return with the CAC, not taxes with the Nigerian Revenue Service. So I think they have not done enough, or let me say we, because we're also consultants, right? So I think we haven't done enough. And one thing that I'm going to say that I think is the cause of that is probably maybe because the face of the tax reform has been shifted to another ministry. Maybe. But personally, what they have done is not enough.
So do you think without him, that will not be done well?
Yeah, I think another person should make the face of the tax law so we can, because obviously now the Minister of Finance, Taiwo Dele, is now focused on other areas of the economy. The head of NIRS, that's Adedeji Zaccheaus, is focused on another thing, making sure that we are collecting taxes, the tax is implemented properly. So who is now informing the public? Because if you say, okay, you, Taiwo Dele, you are focused on that area, the NIRS chairman ensure that NIRS is delivering that, collecting taxes from the government. So who is now going to inform the public of what they must do?
So are you saying that the tax committee, the presidential tax committee job is beyond research and telling us what to do, how to change our tax laws, doing reforms, and then going deeper to do, even as it has been concluded, the research has been
Yes,
concluded.
I think because that is what they did the reform, so their job is exceed just giving us the reform and then leaving it for us. You still have to constantly, educate people. During, I think sometimes around, was it November, December, a series of, meetings, series of webinars attended by Taiwo. Who is doing that now? We are not seeing that again. So which means the public education, I don't want to say has been neglected, but then no one is doing it. That's the truth. So the reform committee, if it can be revived, obviously it has not been scrapped, I'm sure that. If it can be revived, I think we can pick something again.
Okay, I think that Nigerians will like giving some kind of news and headlines, just boom, like some kind of movie, just announce and we just close the deal. Everybody go back to sleep.
We are experts in doing that.
All right, so let's as we wrap up as just in 1 minute, looking ahead of the next maybe 5 years. The tax reform has introduced unified tax code. We have established Nigerian, revenue service, which was changed, FIRS to NRS now, and we have standardized tax and administration, and we have created a mechanism intended to reduce, multi-taxation. Looking ahead, what are the indicators that households should prioritize, should look at, and also what are those things that you could recommend for the government?
For the indicators that we should prioritize so we can properly say, or let me say decide that, okay, the reform is working, I think the primary indicator is to look at the tax to GDP ratio. Because if the GDP ratio is still dropping, and you are telling me that taxes are going up, that means you are making money from taxes, but then the public are not feeling it. Prices, inflation, still dancing, going up, going down. Fuel prices going up, going down. So I think governments should, for us to say going forward, if we are going to carry any reform, we should look at what is the impact of this on the public, right? And how does it affect the public directly? How does it affect the economy? So GDP ratio, GDP to tax ratio, the investments in the economy, inflation rate, and another thing that we have to look at. Import and export rate. Those are the parameters I think we can use to measure the sources of reforms. And for recommendation, I think the government should keep, educating the public, and at the same time carrying out reforms that have direct impact on the citizens, because that is where the money is coming from.
Right, thank you. Many thanks to you, Mr. Jamiu Fatoyinbo, tax expert, principal consultant, deferred professional service, for your valuable insights and for joining us on the program. Thank you so much. This is the second time we are doing this, and then we'll continue to do it in as much as the tax reforms and tax law is concerned, and we have issues, we'll talk about that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of today's discussion. As we all know, the true success of Nigeria tax reform will not be measured solely by the revenue generated, but by their impact on households, business, and the quality of public services. The conversation doesn't end here. Stay informed, engage responsibly, and continue to play your part in building stronger, more accountable economy. And for more information, knowledge on finance, the market, banking, economy, and investing, please visit the brochure website. Watch WebTV on YouTube and follow our social media platform on the screen. I am Gabriel Jude. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.